And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK Show, and this is going to be episode 455. So I hope you guys had a great day, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week that is ahead of you. And in this episode of the MSK Show, I am going to be having a conversation with SciFi4Me, aka Jason Hunt, and this is going to be his first appearance on the show. So nice to meet you, man. How are you doing, dude?
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. Having a great time so far.
So far, yes, because if you guys aren't actually watching this part of this episode of the MSK Show live, we had like this deja vu moment. So if you saw some hot, rich black guy, on an episode of this show and he maybe have transformed into a Super Saiyan just randomly, and then money started falling out of the sky and pigs started, farting, gold out of their asses, that may have been in that episode, but it turns out we live in reality, and this is where we are currently at right now, actually. So, since this is your first appearance on this show, we'll
Yep.
get your origin story first, and then we'll start talking about content creation journey and how you kind of see things now and the stuff that you cover. But I wanted to ask you one thing first: are you secretly Bruce Wayne? Because your setup is
No.
literally in the Batcave,
Yeah,
actually.
no. This is the product of an accumulation of various needs that come together for my own live streams, because I have to have so many different things working at the same time. Because we broadcast to about 5 or 6 different platforms at once,
Yeah, you need a strong
and
PC for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so all of these different monitors serve particular functions for like messages and the source material and control panel and that kind of thing. So it's just grown over time. I've been doing this. Monday is going to be our 17th anniversary, so I've been doing this for a while. And every time we come in, it's, oh, I need a monitor for that. I have this new thing that I can do. I need a monitor for that, and so it's kind of grown. But I've maxed out my video card, so we're not going to have any more monitors to add to it. So I'm done.
But what about just having one overarching big wide one that goes all the way around?
I thought about that, and I my peripheral vision is not great, so the wraparound screens are not comfortable for me. So I have to be able to go to a specific spot. So this is just easier to do it this way. But
Okay. But yeah, people got to understand like this notion in people's heads where they believe that just turning a mic on and turning a webcam on and just talking into a microphone and a webcam, potentially doing pre-recorded or live, doesn't matter. It's the same. It's like different strokes for different folks. If you want to use that as an analogy, that's an analogy we had back in when I was younger. Back in my day, I'm
yeah,
old now. I'm all just broken down now at this point. Ugh, my back is killing me.
you
Uh,
don't
uh,
you don't strike me as being that old there.
because what people need to understand is like stringing together a conversation with someone, developing chemistry, whether you have them on for one-on-ones, which is what a lot of people do. They have a lot of random people on, over time and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or they simply just, do it with a panel of people. This is kind of something that, if you want to get better at it, there's going to be many ways to do it. But just these people that go, man, your podcast doesn't get a whole lot of views. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Random XX Dick Sucker 123. Why don't you actually do this for me? How about you get your own show together? Don't know how you're going to find the people for it, because that's also a task too. It's just finding people to come on your show and
Right.
being with you on a panel as well. Like also week to week to week. How about you show me how it's done, since you know so much about doing this? And it's like, oh my god, these people are insufferably insane. They're always like, your show only got 90 views. What does yours get? Oh wait, sorry, I forget. Like, what's that old saying? Bees don't try to convince flies that honey tastes like shit. Something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Well, and for me, it's come down to the point. I've been doing this long enough now, and the algorithm on YouTube especially changes every 3 months. So by the time you get into the rhythm of doing something to beat the algorithm, then it changes. So I've gotten to a point now where I'm not looking. I do look at the view counts. I look at the numbers just as a way of measuring growth overall. But in terms of the viewers, my emphasis now, my focus is who keeps showing up. How many people are in the chat that I recognize these names, that people keep coming back day after day
Mhm.
after day, because that tells me we have a loyal audience. Not be a big audience, but it's a loyal audience. They keep coming back because whatever it is that I'm doing, they see has value. And that matters more to me than the YouTube algorithm, which is going to change in 3 months anyway.
Mhm.
So I don't focus so much on numbers. It's there in the background, but it's more just I'm having a conversation with the people that actually show up, and that number gets bigger. Great. And if it doesn't, then I'm still talking to the people that are actually there. Charlie Daniels, who the devil went down to Georgia. His philosophy, his autobiography was don't play to the empty seats. And he basically early on in his career, when they're doing the bands, they're doing the bars, and you've got people that don't show up. And
Yeah.
well, I'm not playing a concert for the people who aren't there. I'm going to give the best show that I can to the people who actually, the butts in seats, the people who
Mhm.
actually show up and pay their money to be there. I'm going to give them the best performance that I can give them. And that's a good philosophy to have on anything, whether it's podcasting or plumbing. My customers, my fans, my audience, my whatever, you have a relationship with them, and those are the important people, not the people who don't show up, not the people who criticize or critique, even though they never watch what you're doing. They don't know. You're
Mhm.
right. They don't have any leg to stand on when it comes to criticizing. It's like, okay, yeah, you're just making a bunch of noise. Come and see the show. If you don't like it, tell me what you don't like, and we'll have a conversation. But in the meantime, I'm going to do what I do.
Mhm. Because you'll have people that will say, because it goes a lot of different areas too. They're like, well, you have a show and they'll hear your opinion out and they'll be like, well, that's wrong. Well, if someone's like,
Yeah,
okay, I keep in mind, I could be wrong, but why don't you come on and tell me to my, like, I'm saying to my face, it'd be like the webcam or whatever. Tell me why I'm wrong. Because the thing is, anyone can like type up a way to have a response to someone, but actually being able to, voice it and actually counteract what someone's saying, like with your actual voice, is way different. Like those people are on Twitter that are always like, well, I don't get why people that do content creation do XX thing. Well, it's like, it's one of those things where, yeah, you can have a general opinion on most things, actually. You can have a general opinion on how content creators should do things. But I've noticed that when people finally do it themselves, their whole mindset just changes because, well, they finally get to understand what this actually is. It's not literally just turning on a computer and just going,
yeah,
and some people can, like, and come on, you could do that kind of as a style. That's never been my kind of thing. I have to have things planned out. I'm an old man. I need my stuff meticulous and thought out and planned, but I just don't get people where they'll be like, well, I heard you on your show say this. No, what did I actually say? And they'll be
mhm,
like, well, they can't tell you because keep in mind, people aren't listening. A lot of people do that thing where they listen, but they're not hearing you. It's a thing, it's a skill people should develop over time. Like, how like you'll be on like shows sometimes with people and then you can tell just like they're listening, but they're not like hearing you because they're just zoned out.
right.
It's another thing that's hard to do in panel shows. People just be zoning out constantly. And that's how arguments start because you have misunderstandings based on what someone's not listening to and they're just zoning out. So, lots of ups and downs with this kind of, let's say, industry.
Yeah.
Not, well, I'm doing this kind of like for the love of the game. That's why I'm here. I just
Well,
love talking about this stuff. That's why I'm doing this.
I ran into that at one point because I'm old school. I'm Gen X. I grew up with no internet and no technology, but I got my start in college radio. And podcasting for a long time kind of got the better of me. It was like, yeah, it was really tough for me to wrap my head around that until it clicked in my head that a podcast is just recorded radio. We're just doing a radio, it's a radio program,
Hmm.
but it's not live. And once I got past that, then it was fairly easy to do. My background is in media production, so it was easy for me
Mm.
to pick this up. But you're right; it's not just a matter of getting a microphone and a camera. You can do that. That's a good way to start. but that's not, I mean, that's just the start. That's just the beginning of things. You still have to figure out your voice, your style, your presentation, and all of that stuff evolves the longer you do it, the better you get. And the better you get, the bigger your audience gets, and the more opportunities you have to bring on guests and your panels and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. So it's kind of an organic thing right from the very beginning.
Also, people are here. Sci-Fi Snob, take two. This is,
Yeah.
I think,
Hey,
one of your
Snob.
subscribers. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Emily. How are you doing? It's all about dollar bills. You know what? If you want to give me all types of dollar bills, I'll take them. Hey, we take all types forms of payment here. No, I'm not a stripper or an OnlyFans model, but I take all you guys' money. Lieutenant Gertina, what's up, man? How you doing? Plumbing is about giving a show. Well, see, this is the thing. If you're in porn, probably. We
Well,
are normal dudes, not happening. My chat just, well, to be fair, I wanted to have kind of like a chat where like you have a really entertaining conversation in the chat versus the host. So like I kind of grew up in a period where like certain types of streamers would have like this weird bit friendly banter back and forth
yeah.
with the chat. I wanted that because keep in mind, I don't want to be that guy where he's always serious all the time because that's just no fun. You gotta be able to laugh at yourself and have jokes with some of the stuff. That would be like my only real pet peeve with some people, like other people that I've seen do this for a long time. They're just always trying to be super serious all the time. It's like this is supposed to be kind of like, I'm not saying they're not having fun because everyone's own way of having fun is different, but
Sure.
not everything is super serious. So if you're not having, if I don't see you really having any genuine fun, then I'm just gonna feel like you're just kind of just putting on a persona because that just would be a persona, right? You just
Yeah.
no, everything has to be serious, no jokes. I hear you guys say a joke, it's over. It's like, oh my
Well,
god.
the thing with that though is when you're doing this, when you're live on the air, and I run into this too, and this is common throughout
Mhm,
all of broadcasting and media. Who you are on camera is not necessarily the same as who you are off camera in your real life
mhm.
every day. You know, just day to day dealing with people, and there's a little bit of presentation there. You know, I'm not quite the same, you know, here in the studio as I am just in real life. You know, in real life, I have absolutely no sense of humor at all. So,
So it's a clone. So you
yeah,
cloned
yeah,
yourself.
I'm just here doing a bit. But yeah, but you learn that,
Mhm,
you know, you learn, okay, where's my comfort level, what can I get away with, what do I feel like I can get away with, how far can I push it, and what does the audience react to, what's going to turn them off, what's going to bring them back. So it's always a constant give and take on that kind of thing. And sometimes you can take it too far and make everything a joke and people don't respond to that. But you're right, the other
yeah, you
direction,
need
if
a balance
everything is
though.
all said,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to find a balance, absolutely.
Yeah, because the thing is, if everything is a joke, the problem here is that no one takes you seriously, so then no one ends up respecting your opinion. But
Yeah.
for me, whenever it comes to all that stuff, I think people decide whether they respect you within about, I don't know what's an old saying we had growing up. First impressions matter. I feel like people's general sentiment of how much they'll care about what you're gonna say comes within their first impression of you. Like you could seriously, I've seen a lot of streamers do this, cater to every whim a person has, and that
Hmm.
person wouldn't give a flying fuck if you just stopped streaming today or never streamed again. It's you gotta, because like the thing is like you said earlier, you can't please everybody.
Right.
You gotta just sometimes go with how you think the situation is going to be because I've seen people literally just in like completely just transform their entire personality to their chat. It's like, but you do realize that these people, you're the one in control. You're the one who's running the show. You should be dictating all that, because I've seen so many different personalities over the years. Like I remember having like I don't know, how many groups have we been on at this point? God, I don't even remember at this point. At least 4 or 5 different groups of people. So all different types of walks of life. Also, you can I learned in the show doing this, can't have every personality on. Doesn't work like that.
Right.
If you have every
Right.
personality on, someone is gonna say something that the other person doesn't like, and they're just trying to take away the show. Oh god, it's the worst. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I've run into that. Now I actually have it now where I have enough connections with other people that are doing this kind of thing,
Mhm,
and I'm out on the periphery, like with Comicsgate, for example. You have people on one side of an argument, people on another side of an argument, or with Star Wars or with
mhm.
Star Trek or anything. where you have people that really love this thing and people that really hate this thing. And I was like, okay, well, now I can't have these two people on a panel together anymore because they're on opposite sides of this thing. And I am not going to feed into that drama.
Oh
And
yeah.
it makes it tough. I was like, man, I really would like to have all of these people on this show at the same time. It'd be a great conversation, except now they all hate each other. So yeah, I feel you. I know it's not fun trying to figure that
Yeah.
out.
And then you'll have people that will be like, I don't want to. To be fair, this is going to sound selfish. This is. I'm just gonna make sure make sure I punt it out. But if someone is like, hey, I'm gonna do this with you, and then yeah, come on, everyone needs breaks. Everyone is all allowed to take a break. But you know, for me, I don't really ever want to take a break doing this. I love talking about this stuff, and I to be fair, I don't really think it's ever this specifically that makes people burned out. I do feel like it's personal life things that make people burnt out on this stuff, because if you have problems in your personal life and then this is your outlet, and then at some point they're going to seep into each other. It's just how it works, because you think about your personal life stuff all the time because it's always currently happening. And I feel like I'm always here doing this because, well, I just generally end up doing it. So when you lose people, it's like, well, hey man, my wife left me for my brother. It turns out he was black, and now I can do the show with you. And you realize like, well, how long? Oh, I can't really give you. What do you mean? If we're supposed to do the show together, do I just not have a show then? Because you just that's the thing is I for me, I have to work on doing shows myself at this point now. Not on these. I really can't do these kind of shows by myself. But but it's hard to do shows by yourself. It kind
Yeah.
of is because not having someone to bounce off of sucks. But then that like you can never trust that someone randomly is gonna be there for you all the time on your show. But
Yeah.
it's like, hey, things are gonna suck in life, but the show must go on. Like I'm gonna be here. I would hope that if we're gonna do this together and we make this kind of commitment, you would be here too. Kind of like through the whole thick and thin. Like there's gonna be weeks you're gonna not want to do it. I've never really came on a show and not want to do a show, but it's this has helped me feel better about my day talking about this stuff.
Well, and I've run into that, over the course of time. We have an all volunteer staff, and I've had as many as 20, 22 people different at different times doing writing articles, writing reviews, doing that sort of thing, and hosting shows and being part of panel discussions. And in the last 5, 6 years, especially, politics has gotten in the way of that. Is, oh, I can't believe you think that. I can't do a show with you anymore.
I know what you're
And
saying.
it's that kind of thing. And now it's me and the missus, and I've got one show instead of 12. So, it's,
Oh, you're married. Oh, okay.
I am,
Okay.
yeah.
How do you have any
Yeah,
kids or anything?
she'll claim me. I got a 24-year-old from a first marriage.
Okay.
And fortunately they like each other and they get along. So yeah,
Good
everything's good
lord.
here. So, but yeah, but she dove in, and when we met in 2015, she dove in and started helping out right away, and
Oh,
she
this.
understood what we were doing,
Mhm.
and has proven invaluable to keeping this thing going. So, but yeah, it's an up and down thing. Would I like to have more people involved? Sure. Would I like to pay them? Absolutely. But that's not in the cards right now. But I feel you, man. If you're gonna make a commitment to do this thing, and then suddenly you just don't like something that I said, or you don't like how I voted, and suddenly this is a problem and you're going to go away, well, then you really weren't committed to it in the first place, were you?
Mhm. Yeah,
No.
or there'll be things where, like, someone will be like, well, I'm burnt out. Well, what are you specifically burnt out on? Because the thing is,
Yeah.
I truly don't believe this burns people out because this is for entertainment purposes. It has no real bearing. I truly believe it's
Yeah,
personal life stuff that makes people burnt out on this stuff because, things are really
that's
hard now for a
partly
lot of
true.
people.
That's partly true. But if depending on how often you do it, how frequently you do it,
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I agree with that too.
that can be a thing too, because let's say for us, so if I'm doing this, so the show that I do is called Live from the Bunker. It's daily, Monday through Friday
Yes.
at noon Central. And generally my approach is the first hour is news headlines, and I'll tell you what I think. And then we try to book a guest for the second hour, so it's more of a conversation. It's not just me. I keep saying, the show is more interesting when other people are on it. It's not just me for the whole
Yeah, just
time.
straight monologuing. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, you do that day after day after day after day, and you don't have anybody to backstop you or take, guest host or do that. And we're in the process of lining up guest hosts now. But with all of the drama online and everything else, plus, yes, like you say, personal life gets into it, then at some point it's not necessarily burnout, but you start to lose, the battery starts to drain, and
Mm.
you need to sit there. Okay, I need to take a break. I need to take a few days, regroup, go back through my, clean out my email, go through these different things, and just refresh a little bit, so you can come at the material with a little bit more energy than you had, coming out. We've taken those breaks a few times where I'm sitting there going, because I'm carrying so much of the load for this particular project. And after a while, I was like, I can't do it right now. I need to take a break. I need to take a week off. I need to take a month off, and then we'll come back, we'll regroup. And we've done that a couple of times. And some people have said, you can't just walk away from it. Like, well, maybe, but
Parasocialness is a bit like
yeah,
that's the thing, is that the whole parasocialness,
yeah,
it can be it can be both be a blessing and a curse, because and that's what I've told people when you kind of get into doing this kind of stuff, is like, whenever you do develop a fan base or people that like you or want to actually be around everything you're gonna, because even the worst content creator is gonna have people that are just gonna like them for
yeah.
whatever reason they developed. Once you make that a part of their daily life, so I tell people, though, this is all kind of fun and games until you make that a part of someone's daily life. And then when it's not a part of their daily life, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to feel very bad you're not a part of it, or they're going to go check someone else out, because
Well,
people kind of move on very quickly.
yeah, and then you have the added layer of people who are paying you. If
Yeah.
you're, yeah, okay, fine. The channel gets monetized. We're getting some revenue from YouTube ads. But when you start with memberships and super chats, and people are actually, making the choice to support you financially, then there's an added layer there of, professional obligation. I now no longer just have fans. They're customers, and
Mhm.
these people they need to get something for the money that they're putting in. There needs to be a value exchange there. So I can't just sit there and go, I don't want to do anything anymore. You can't just quit. You gotta figure out how to keep going, and how to make it work. And it's for their benefit just as much as it is for yours. So that it's a constant thing that you have to navigate, and figure out the best way to do it, so that you don't end up overextending and burning out, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you have this break, and just completely lose it.
The thing that you said a few seconds ago, when it comes to like what could contribute to someone getting burnt out, I'll give an example for a lot of people who don't do this. Give you a round. All the married people out there, they're gonna watch this show, because people know how much I feel about marriage these days with these girls. Oh my god, that's another discussion for another show. But think like this: a honeymoon phase. There's a reason why it's called the honeymoon phase, and people have honeymoon phases not just in marriage, but in like a lot of things, right? So when
Yep.
you first start doing content creation, you've maybe wanted to do it for a long time. You've watched people you've loved for a long time, and you finally do it yourself. It's all new. It's exciting. It's the next best thing. You can't wait to put in your heart and soul into it. Well, that's cool and all and dandy until 8 months in, and then maybe the numbers aren't what you thought they were going to be. Maybe you're not producing the kind of content that you thought you would be producing, or maybe it's not coming out the way you wanted, or maybe you're not speaking the way in videos you want. Bunch of different things. All
Mhm.
after that honeymoon phase, which is different for everyone. It could be 6 months, a year, 2 years, doesn't matter. It's not a time definite point. Once it's not the newest best thing anymore, it kind of loses its luster. It's just like, oh, well, I kind of really like doing this, but that love of when you first initially start doing it just kind of fades over time. But people that truly do love it, you'll like yourself, myself, and a lot of people included, you just kind of keep doing it because you just really love it. Like, you can't see yourself not doing it because you've done it for so long, and you just enjoy talking about these kind of things. It's just, I find it great,
Yep.
honestly. But that's how you end up weeding out people that are only gonna be around for 6 months versus people that are gonna be out here for 5 years. Like, I try to find truly long-term people, but like you said before, personal life gets in the way and it makes it an up and down kind of thing too. And that's the thing too. That new wife you got is really exciting and awesome, but she puts her underwear next to your video game console. You might want to actually throw her out the window. It's just kind of something that happens. People just do things to make you irk. You know.
Yeah. Well,
So,
fortunately, I peaked with the Atari 2600, so I've not picked up any kind of console
oh
anytime soon.
no, no.
But yeah, and I still actually have I still have it, by the way.
Oh my god.
And I have ET, the ET cartridge. It still works. It still works. It's still playable. So yeah, that was my jam. Asteroids
I
and
agree, Snob. Yeah.
and uh and ET. So, but yeah, it does. The show that we do now, I've been doing since 2014. I've been doing it for 12 years. Come Monday, and there is an investment in it. There is an emotional connection to it, where you do feel like you can't just walk away from it. I've been doing this for 12 years. I should be getting something out of it, and you put so much of yourself into the project that it's hard to walk away from it. As we've gotten to a point now where I have what we call an abort or pivot method, where we take a look at what we're doing, and if it's not working, we're not getting the results that we want. The decision is, do we abort it? Do we just completely shut it down and not do it anymore? Or do we pivot? Do we make adjustments? Do we make changes? And a lot of that depends on what kind of response we're getting from the audience at the time. And that's how we've settled into the format of the show now, being the first hour, what I call the Rush Limbaugh hour, where it's just, here's the news, here's what I think about it. And the second hour is the James Lipton hour, which is the interview. It's inside the actor studio, James Lipton, where you
Mhm.
have the conversation with your guests. And that seems to be working pretty well, assuming that we can get guests in the second hour. That sometimes is a challenge. But we've all kind of settled into a rhythm now, and the audience knows what to expect. I know what I need to do for the show, what kind of prep I need to do. So it seems to be working out so far. We'll see what happens in the next 12 years.
Yeah, I feel like when you do this kind of stuff, it ebbs and flows all the time. Like, man, you'll feel like you have something good going, and then it happens every week, and it just becomes a routine. And then just randomly, someone is like, "Hey, man, um, I grew a third leg in my butt. Can't be on the show anymore."
Yeah.
You're like, "All right." But then
Yeah.
you kind of realize, wait a minute, that's not all right, because now I have to replace that person, fill that spot, change the day, because it's not even just about the people itself. It's like, if you have a routine with the shows, like you do them every day or 3 times a week, you fall into a rhythm of like, okay, I know I got to be here at this time that day with that person, all that stuff. That person, stops coming, then I just change that day, or do I? And now I have to make changes to my own other schedule when I already have other prior things going too.
Yeah.
Man, so much stuff that goes into this stuff. Holy crap! This is uh, Death Angel Shadow.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that
He's
my
one of mine.
wife? That's my
No,
wife's name.
no, he's one of mine.
We'll be the judge if it's working out or not. That is true. That is true. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Snob likes to cause problems. So
it's
he's
always the
he's
white
different.
people that cause problems.
Well,
Blacks
okay,
don't cause problems,
snobs.
guys. I'm
The
joking.
snob's not only white; he's Canadian, so that
That's
adds
even
another
worse.
layer of, I know, right?
Just
But
being Canadian and white is already the double whammy.
yeah,
Mm.
so I don't know. Anyway,
So I wanted to ask you, what made, because you said you actually went to college for doing
yes,
media.
yeah. I started in college radio in 1988,
Hmm.
and did that for a couple of years. I saw Lawrence of Arabia in the movie theaters when they restored it. Warner Brothers did a big digital restoration in 1990, and I saw that and I said, okay, I need to be making movies instead. So I went to University of North Texas, studied film, and over the years I have not managed to do anything that I had originally planned to do. I should have stayed in radio, but I've done radio, I've done motion pictures, I've done television, I've done newspaper, and now with the online stuff with the streaming and everything. and it's been an interesting ride, I'll say. But I've worked on at a couple of different network affiliate, ABC affiliates, CW affiliate, making TV commercials for local clients. I've done a number of short films. I've had a film, a short film that was on the Sci-Fi Channel as part of their exposure contest back in 2007. So I've been there, done that a few times. Lost the T-shirt, but yeah, it's been fun. And then when this came around in 2009, Sci-Fi Channel changed their brand to Sci-Fi. And I thought, well, this is an opportunity here because now everybody thinks that they're getting away from science fiction because Sci-Fi Channel had been around for 17 years at that point. They had a niche audience. They had a very specific thing that they did. And they were doing wrestling shows and they had cooking shows and people thought, "Oh, you're just trying to be another USA network changing the name." And fortunately, it turned out that they weren't. But at the time, a lot of people were wondering what the Sci Fi Channel's strategy was going to be with the name change. And a lot of people online were just, I just want a place where I can watch science fiction. And this is before Netflix was a thing. Netflix was still sending out DVDs,
Mm,
and YouTube was still cat videos and golf balls to the crotch. It was, Google had not bought it yet, but you had this online video thing. And I thought, well, why did it doesn't have to be a cable channel. Why couldn't you do a sci-fi channel kind of thing with online video?
mhm,
And because I was looking at YouTube, I was like, well, you could just do it like that. And people were like, I'd watch it. So the original idea was to take this, a combination of TV and movie theater. We get a bunch of movies in the public domain and do kind of a, B movie, drive-in movie type of thing like what Joe Bob Briggs has been doing, and have a library of books in the public domain. And we have, movie reviews and TV show reviews and interviews, and combine what they used to do with Starlog magazine with, Premiere magazine and, the your local news channel. All of these different things combined into this thing, and that was the original plan. And it hasn't quite worked out that way yet. But it was a blog in the basement for the longest time, just because that's how those things turn out.
mhm.
But it's worked out. Okay, I have had opportunities to talk to a number of different people, uh, you know,
We're talking about
content
both big
creators.
and small in the industry
Yeah,
that you come from. Okay.
I've interviewed, award-winning authors. I've interviewed Joe Haldeman. I've interviewed Harry Turtledove. I've interviewed Vonda McIntyre. I've had Chuck Dixon is going to be on the show tomorrow. He's been on before. He's co-creator of Bane, Batman's
Yeah,
villain.
yeah, Chuck Dixon. Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, you know what's crazy?
Grant
I tried to message him to come on the show. He just left me on red. I don't know what. I couldn't get him. I couldn't get him.
Chuck
I tried.
Chuck gets really busy. I'm actually surprised that I managed to get a hold of him. He's got this new comic book that he's got funding, and so he sent me a note about it. I was like, yeah, let's get you on the show. But I've had him. I've got I've talked to Mercedes Lackey. I've talked to Alan Dean Foster a couple of times. Various different, Cat Rambo. I have moderated panels with Stephen Amell and Ming Na Wen and Peter Mayhew and Lee Majors and Margot Kidder. The opportunities have been really phenomenal. And some of that is I'm in the right place at the right time. Other parts of that is being prepared and going after those opportunities and sitting there going, you know what? I want to interview X and so person. Let me find out how I can do that. And over the years we've gotten on media lists for the various networks and the studios. So, we can get access to media materials, and PR companies will send us notes and say, hey, so and so's got this new book out. Are you interested? You want a review copy? Do you want to set up an interview? And that's how we'll get a lot of the stuff that we get is, the publicity people at the networks or the publicity people at the studios will be sending out material, or public relations firms, publicity people that the authors hire because they got to do a lot of their own marketing anymore. So we've had a number of different opportunities to talk to all sorts of different people, both actors and authors and comic book creators and game designers and that sort of thing. So it's been an interesting experience set of experiences. I mean, we were the only channel so far. We have been the only channel to broadcast live from Worldcon, which it was here in Kansas City in 2015, and we or 2016 rather, and we've been so far we've been the only website to ever do any kind of a broadcast from Worldcon, which is where they announce the Hugo Awards every year.
Mm.
And
You're
we
from,
can't.
you live in Kansas?
Yeah, I'm in Kansas City.
So where's Dorothy?
Over the rainbow. She's not available right now. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. There are a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges. We've had some stuff where like, hey, we really want to do this thing and then couldn't because we don't have the money, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the time anymore. Moderating panels became a challenge, especially then COVID hit, and a lot of these conventions said, oh well, we can do this, we can do these live streams ourselves. And so everything that we had planned coming out of Worldcon fell apart because all these conventions decided that they could do it themselves because everybody's got a camera and an internet connection. So it's like, well, okay, we got to figure out what we're going to do next. So
So I wanted to ask, so a lot of people got to understand when you have all these conversations with people, the number one thing that I always look for in someone is not even the fact that they have any real credentials or anything. The main things you should look for is if someone can hold a conversation. That should be number one, because you do not want to be on a show and you go, "Hey man, I don't know. What do you think about this?" And they go, "It was all right."
yeah,
Then you ask them again, "What do you like?" I don't know. Make up anything, question your brain, and then ask that person. They'll go, "Yes." The moment I noticed that, the show is over, because I just don't feel like, as you get older, like yourself, wasting your time just doesn't feel like a good thing as an investment for like your days off and stuff like that. Like,
right.
I feel like personally, if that person, I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just this is how I choose people to be on the show. If I feel like a person is not trying, not giving any effort, I'm done. I am just completely done. I'm checked out. Maybe you had a bad week. Things happen. You
Yeah.
know, that's fine. But if that person is coming on and that person is not really giving you anything, no real enthusiasm, nothing. I'm not
Mhm.
saying fake it, but it's like that's a waste of my time. Also, having a decent mic, that's another thing. But I think being able to hold a conversation is the main thing for me, because we're going to be talking here for like, well, like an hour plus, hour 10, 15 max.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to want to have a thoughtful, thought out conversation on a lot of things. And when someone's just there going, yeah, yeah, I walked my dog and yeah, I saw a girl. It's like,
Well, the
fuck.
trick to that, there are two things that I've come to as far as doing interviews. One of my models is Johnny Carson. And Johnny was very famous for being able to pivot no matter where the conversation went with his guests. He would be able to go right along with wherever it was, whether it was Rodney Dangerfield or Tommy Smothers or whoever. Yeah, anything gets said, and a lot of that comes from preparation, from knowing your guest, being able to sit there, and when they mention something purple. Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because your brother's favorite color is purple, isn't it? And because you do your research, you do your homework, you're able to come up with these things. If somebody mentions X, you can take that to spin that off onto another piece of that conversation and say, oh, hey, you mentioned
Yeah,
this. That makes me think, why don't we talk about this and that? And your conversation just kind of flows from one to the other. I don't do, okay, we asked that question, we asked that question, we asked that question. And we ask, because that gets boring. If you're just checking off a list, that gets boring. I want to have a conversation with my guests. And so a lot of times, they've got the agenda, that they have something that they're promoting, they got a new book out, they got a movie that they're in or something like that. Sure, we're
yeah,
going to talk about that, but I'm also going to expand that because my guests are on for an hour. We got a whole hour to talk.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you're an author, for example, I'm going to talk about your book, but we're also going to talk about how you write, why you write, what your process is for
Hmm.
approaching a new project, where you get your ideas, what kind of world building you're going to do, what kind of homework you do, what kind of research you do. All of these different things that go into this thing that you're trying to promote, where there's a lot of other stuff that surrounds that. And so it that me doing homework and having a broad palette of questions to ask, plus the fact that I don't ask yes or no questions. I try to avoid that as much as possible. If you
Yeah.
do the open-ended questions, you're inviting them to come in and expand on the answer and give you something besides just a yes, no, or whatever.
Hmm.
So it's a constant evolving style.
I will say
So
authors do offer the most of that. I will say I've not really ever had that problem with authors. It's
yeah,
only ever actually come from independent or indie comic book creators. I've only really had that from them, or semi new content creators. I would say, like,
mm,
authors, I will say, can fuck this. You get them on one question on anything of their, could be characters, supporting characters, style of writing, dialogue. They're just going off, and I'm just there going like, oh, it's awesome. Oh, goodness gracious.
well, in the last 15, 20 years especially, authors have had to carry a lot more of the water when it comes to marketing their stuff. If you're not
That's true.
Stephen
Hmm.
King, if you're not, Brandon Sanderson, then the publishing houses are not going to spend a whole lot of money on promoting your book. I had a conversation with Ann Crispin a number of years ago about she had just gotten hired to write an origin trilogy for Jack Sparrow and the Pirates of the Caribbean. And she got the first book out, and then she passed away with cancer. But I had a chance to talk to her about that book, and we spoke about the fact that authors have a good amount of the marketing obligation on their shoulders, and they have to learn how to do this stuff. They've got to set up their own interviews. They got to put together their media kit. They got to do the book signings and do all of that themselves, because the publishing houses won't do it for them anymore unless you're some really famous, well-known author. The comic book creators, like you talk about, they haven't had that experience yet, because a lot of these guys, they're brand new, they're young bucks coming out of the stable, and they're not familiar, with the industry. They're putting their book together, they're writing their script, they've got an artist, maybe, somebody's drawing pictures. They don't know anything else about how to put
Yeah,
the
yeah.
publicity out there,
They're
what
not.
what
They
that
haven't developed
machine
that.
looks like.
They haven't developed a personality. Like you
Yeah.
haven't developed like even how to convey a thought to people. Because like it's another thing that has to come along with the conversation you have with people is like understanding like how to have a thoughtful conversation. Like some of these people, there's people that I'll be honest here, I don't think they've ever actually thought why they think in their head, why they think the way that they do. So like people, what you should do is a thought exercise. Think about why you like X thing, and then think extensively why you like about X thing. Think about why other people like the same thing you do, or maybe think about why they like the same thing that you do, but they disagree with you on said things. These are things that I think authors do a little bit better of a job at, but comic critics, like you said, oh my god,
Yeah.
I don't think these people even think why they even like art.
Well, and
It's
that's
hard, you know.
yeah, in psychology it's called metacognition. You're thinking about what you think about. You think about why you think things. You think about why you feel certain ways. And it's basically your reaction to something or how you feel about something. That's the surface level. And then you have to dig down into that and why you think or feel that way, and what is it doing to cause whatever kind of reaction that you're giving me out in public. For comic book creators, they spend a lot of time by themselves.
Yeah, it's
Authors the
solitaire.
same way.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're you're sitting in front of your keyboard, you're sitting in front of your art table or whatnot, and you don't
Mhm.
you don't interact with a whole lot of people. And nowadays, especially with everything being on the internet, you're not, like Jeff says, you're not sitting around the lunch table debating things. You're not in the comic book shop with six or seven other guys talking about, who makes the better Spider-Man or whatever. a lot of this interaction is happening online now,
Hmm.
and that doesn't help because the algorithms on all of these different social media platforms, you know, tilt toward the outrage and the clickbait, and everything is skewed, so you don't even really have a realistic notion of what the real world is all about. And the social skills, the interaction is harder to do because it's all keyboard. You're not actually talking to people, you're not talking with people, you're not having
Yeah.
those conversations. So that when they come in and they got to publicize, they got to promote, they got to do interviews and this, they don't know how to do it. And I have tried a couple of times. We've done some shows. Here are some things you need to know, some things you need to work on when you're publicizing your work, whether it's a book, it's a comic book, it's a game, or whatever. You need to have a good headshot. You need to have a media kit. You need to have a bio. You need to have all, a set of documents that you can send to someone. Hey, I'd like to interview you. Okay, here's my media kit.
Hmm.
And that gives the person doing the interview a starting point so they know what kind of things they want to talk about when you come on to talk about your book. And
Hmm.
then also, you need to be able to do your elevator pitch. Tell me about your book in 30 seconds or less. What is it about your thing that you're creating that you're so passionate about? You can tell me in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and I'll buy it. That you have to work on. It's not something that you just come off the cuff and do it just off the top of your head. You have to practice it. You got to figure out what you're going to say. If you have that long to say it, what's the meat of it? What is the
Yeah.
most important thing that you can get out in 30 seconds that will convince me that I need to buy your book or at least look at the project?
My book has flying pigs and tooth fairies.
So,
Good Lord.
I mean,
That's it.
but that's
I'm
how
a
you do it.
genius.
You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta figure that
Yeah.
out. And that takes workshopping, and not necessarily with your mom. Hey, mom, what do you think about this? Mom's gonna
Yeah,
pat
because
you
your
on the head and say
mom's
it's
gonna
great.
probably buy your book because
Mom's
she
going to
is your
do it.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to have a group of peers, not necessarily friends, family, coworkers, some group of people with a like-minded interest in what you do, and then you can bounce these ideas off and just say, hey, tell me what you think about this, and they can be, I need honest feedback here.
Yeah.
And sometimes it helps to do an A/B test. Do you like this one or this one? Which cover do you like best? Which color do you like best? Which logo do you like best? Which one speaks to you better, A or B, B or C? And that way you kind of focus group it a little bit and get some measurable feedback. And it's not just, I don't know, whichever. So no, no, no. Which one do you like? Give me your honest opinion here. You got to have people that will be honest with you and tell you, I like it, I don't like it.
Yeah. Also, I do feel like it's because some of the times it's always going to be kind of 50-50 too. Like, I feel like there's going to be people that are able to, sit in front of their keyboard and type up their entire book and write it and edit it and all that stuff. And then they'll be able to go on a show and talk about it. But then there's going to be the people that just are not as extroverted in that aspect. Like, some have it and some just can naturally do it. Like, some don't even. I've had authors on the show where they just can talk and we have thoughtful conversations about
Yeah.
anything, and it just goes. Some people just can't, and it's hard because you're like, I want you to succeed, I want to talk to you, I want to kind of dig in your thoughts, but if we can't have a conversation, then it's kind of just dead, because that's gonna be a bad show. And as you said before, you don't want to deliver a bad product to the people that are loyally watching your show, because the people that are in the chat, if they're trying to put this on when they're going to the gym, going back and forth from work, maybe they're taking care of the little kids and the wife's out and they got a babysit, like they got something playing on the TV, that they want to hear people talk. They want to have people have a conversation. It can't be just like, well, I think George R. R. Martin is fat. Okay, we all know that. Anything else? My mom makes really good pies. Your mom should not be doing OnlyFans at 50 years old. But it's like, what? Yeah, because like there's people that what's that old saying in showbiz? You either have it or you don't. That was a saying back in the day. For me, it's not that I didn't have it. I had to hone hone in my own style. 'Cause, I feel like everyone has their own style. It just depends on how you hone it in and improve it over time. So.
Sure.
Oh,
Well,
wanted
and
to
it's
ask
funny
you.
you mentioned George R. R. Martin. It's funny because I had Richard Palinelli and John Wright, who are both science fiction authors, had them on, and we were talking about uh, the one. We were talking about the craft of writing, but we were also talking about the fact that a lot of traditional publishing has gone so nihilistic now. There are no heroes anymore. There are no good guys versus bad guys stories,
Mm.
and they're trying to bring some of that back with a style they're calling superversive and instead of subversive. We're going to subvert your expectations. No, no, no. We're going to go superversive. We're going to give you all of your expectations. He's the good guy, wears the white hat. He beats the villain. He gets the girl. He wins the day. Those kind of stories. And through the course of the conversation, we ended up doing probably a good 15, 20 minutes on why George R. R. Martin is never going to finish his Song of Ice and Fire series. Is because he killed his
Is this
hero.
your wife?
That's my wife.
Oh, okay.
So George R. R. Martin killed the one character that he needs for a happy ending that you get with the kind of story that he's telling with all of this big epic fantasy that he wants to do, kind of in the tradition of Lord of the Rings. This is his Lord of the Rings composition.
Yes.
He can't end it because the good guy who wins is dead. And Martin cannot conceive of a world where heroes exist because his approach to this story has been so nihilistic. He can't write his way out of it because he killed the one character that can make the whole thing work at the end. And Richard and John and I probably did at least a good 15, 20 minutes on just that, on why George R. R. Martin can't finish his book. So you get on these things like you're talking about. You get these people that just have this natural ability to, and it helps to know what you're talking about. But you have this natural ability to just go back and forth and go back and forth on any topic related to whatever it is, wherever you start.
Those typically are like the best guests to have, where you don't even have to question in your mind if they're gonna be able to, answer back or have a conversation. They're just naturally doing it. Those are
Yeah,
the best. Those are the best.
it
I was
is.
like, oh yeah, you're like, oh my god, what a weight lifted off my shoulder. Because
Yeah.
like conversations like that, like George R. R. Martin, in my own personal opinion, because well, to be fair, when I was growing up, when Game of Thrones came out, I watched episode 1. I wasn't that interested. For me, my kind of last Sunday TV show that I watched religiously was The Walking Dead. That was like my Sunday TV to
Hmm.
watch after I got it off the 7th season. Then after I got off the 7th season, that's when like season 4 started. So I was watching it since then. George, I don't know. I feel like the book is done. I feel like it's done. He just doesn't feel like it's probably good enough to release. Because there's no way it can't be done, though. There's no way in my mind someone that successful wouldn't, in their mind,
That's done.
theorize about finishing their book. I feel like it's done. He just hasn't. He just is unwilling to release it potentially because he potentially feels like he's going to get massively ridiculed for how bad it potentially is. Because like these guys these days, I don't even, because I know you've seen it on social media with like these people when they have interviews and like, oh, Rachel Zegler's a good example of that, where
Yeah.
criticism just makes these people just brains explode. They want, I shit people not. They seriously want everyone to straight up just suck them off. And if you're not sucking them off constantly with 100% praise all the time, they truly feel like their whole life is gone. Like, because like I don't know if you're a writer yourself or you've written, because you, like we said, I think you said you've written books before. Like
Yeah, I
there
have.
are days where you simply just think about that world you created and what you do and how you could have made that better or that better. I really believe he really does do that. I just believe that he potentially thinks he releases this final book for people, or maybe final 2 books, and they're not as good. He gets ridiculed and he's going to feel bad about himself. But that just goes to show you how bad things are with this kind of industry whether it comes to books, whether it comes to movies, whether it comes to TV shows or anything, where if you can't actively understand what criticism is and you can't actively take criticism, I don't even know how you even function as a person anymore. Is what kind of life would that be where if something is not 100% praise, then it's just you shouldn't say it at all. And it's like, what? Are we 5 years old? That's what kids
Well,
used to say. Remember, if you have
the
nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. It's like,
yeah,
oh my
the
god.
reason for that is because you have a lot of people now that are in this creative field who grew up with Buffy and Harry Potter and Twilight and Hunger Games, and that is their only source. That's their only reference for everything that they create. And they are using all of these platforms, Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, and all that. They're using their creative endeavors as therapy. They're putting themselves in the story. There's a lot of self insertion that's going on here, and you have this whole I feel seen and my representation, and in the last 10, 15 years especially, it's gotten really bad. Now we're coming on the backside of it now, but for a long while it was, I that this whole I feel seen crowd and representation stuff got into identity politics, got into ideological stuff. So much so that when you criticize the work, they take it personally because they have inserted themselves into the work to the degree that when you criticize the work, you're criticizing them. And how dare you say that thing about me when you're actually saying it about the book or you're saying it about the TV show? But they take it to mean you're criticizing them personally. And they can't separate themselves from the thing that they're trying to make.
Yeah, and the reason why I answered your question that way is because out of all these Hollywood people we've seen, how many of these people, I'm not saying George is like this, I'm just theorizing here. How many of these people, straight up, when Elon Musk purchased Twitter, all just left and went to Blue Sky?
Yeah.
Or literally a few comments towards them, not even really that bad, being like, hey, I liked your, they'll even preference, I liked your movie, but I felt like this could have been better. They'll just block you or mute you.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, it's really hard to believe he hasn't finished the books. I just personally believe that there, people like him, egos are just so inflatedly huge. Any criticism he's going to receive is going to make him crumble. Like, he probably saw all the criticism with Game of Thrones when the show ended. Remember that the season 8 ending that no one really liked at all. And it's like one of the worst TV show endings ever.
Yeah.
Guys, on the internet, like you said, since everything on the internet is big now. Well, imagine reading hundreds and thousands and millions of comments of someone shitting on your work. That's not good for someone's psyche, even though I might not even like this guy. That's not good for someone's psyche. Why would he want to re-enter that and even open the can of worms again? It's like,
Well, a couple of things there. He has addressed the backlash on a number of times on his blog. He frequently is writing on the blog, and he's frequently making excuses for himself as to why he's not finished.
Oh, I've seen them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that he's the type of psyche that really worries all that much about what other people think, because he'll push back. I mean, he pushes back on Larry Correa all the time. But the other thing, as far as whether or not his book is done, I have a I doubt that it's finished, because if it was finished, the publisher would be sitting there going, all right, where is it? Give it to us. If it's finished, I want to see it. Because you have an obligation there as part of your contract.
Well, maybe he ate the publisher. Maybe he ate them.
Well, no, because he's got this contract that he's done other things. He's delivered other, anthologies and short stories and whatnot, but he's not done this. And he'll frequently give progress reports on when's a winter and where it's going to come out. And he was supposed to be done with this thing, what 7, 8, 9 years ago. And I can imagine those conversations with his editor at his publishing house, and they can sit there and go, George, where's the book? Well, I had this and that and this and that and this and that. If the book was done, then George contractually has a legal obligation to deliver that manuscript. Otherwise, he's in breach of contract.
Right.
If he can draw it out and say, oh, well, I need to revise this, I got to do this thing happened over here, and the TV show is doing this, and I got all these different obligations, yada, 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 yada. I need to do another pass on chapter 12. As long as he can keep doing that, bobbing and weaving and dodging, he doesn't have to deliver the manuscript. If the publishing house knows that the manuscript is done, then they can call the the tab and say, all right, where is it? Give it here. And there's the other people who have speculated that the season 8 ending that was so terrible for everybody was based off an outline that he gave to the two Daves so they could finish. Benioff and Wise passed where the books were, but here's the projection. This is where it's going to go because this is what George had written out on the outline of what he was going to do. And it was so badly received that George looks at this and says, "Oh, well, they hated that, so I can't really do that. I guess I'm
Mhm.
going to have to figure something else out." So now he can go back to his publisher and I got to rework the thing. I don't know how true that is, whether or not Benioff and Weiss were working off of an outline from Martin, but it's possible. And if that's true, and they went and they did this thing, and everybody hated it, and Martin looks at that and goes, "Well, everybody hated what I was about to do in this book. Now
Mhm.
what am I going to do?" He could feel like he's in a bind because now he's got to completely rework whatever he was going to do, and he killed his one hero back here, and now he can't get himself out of it.
Do you feel
He's
like
painted himself
backlash
in a corner.
plays into that too?
I think a
Where
little
like
bit.
you see
Yeah.
so much backlash for how bad your ideas are, and people they're probably personally attacking him too in those critiques, and he just sees that and goes, this is just not worth it. Because and it's probably could you, I'm not making excuse for it. I've seen that stuff you're talking about, and I agree. He's probably just being super lazy. But do you think that there's not some sort of like mental block there where it's like, he's just, his brain can't process all that hate he got, so he just can't formulate an idea to write some days?
No, I don't. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that personal for him. I think, and I agree with John Wright on this. I think he has a nihilistic way of looking at the world, and a lot of people who are on the far left, progressives, Marxists, people who deal in group dynamics, identity politics. How dare you? How dare you be a certain particular group? You're not in the crowd. They have a tendency to assume that the world is all shades of gray and there are no good guys. There are no heroes. There are no, yeah, it's like they want to deconstruct everything.
That's why they can't
And
believe the concept of Superman, someone just being a
yeah,
good person just because they're just good. That that
yeah,
that that to them is foreign for some reason. You just can't be a good person. It's just crazy, you
right.
know?
And Martin is part of that group. And Martin can't conceive of a world where somebody does something heroic simply because it's the right thing to do. These people don't understand. They don't have a concept of right and wrong as opposed to, the moral relativism. Well, if it's right for you, it's okay. It might not be for me, but if you think it's okay for you, then it's okay. And that's where the trap is, because if I sit there and say, okay, you're going to be a moral relativist and you say that murder is wrong, but moral relativism sits there and says, well, if I can sit there and say, well, murder is okay for me, who are you to say that it's wrong? See, that's the when you start to get into where all of that breaks down.
Yeah.
You still have a moral construct for society. And if you have a nihilistic way of looking at things, you can't conceive of a place or a time or a situation where somebody does something heroic, somebody does something nice simply because it's the right thing to do. And because he's killed the one character that actually does that, he can't finish his story because he doesn't have another character that's doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. He doesn't have an
Mhm.
Aragorn. He doesn't have that character anymore. And he's not the only one like that. There are a lot of different people that are like that, that have that worldview, and it informs what kind of stories they tell. And now you have the Hugo Award has been tainted because politics. And if
Mhm.
I see this is a Hugo Award winning novel, I'm less likely to pick it up because I know what's gone into deciding that that one's a Hugo.
Even the even if the book has like a New York Times best-selling kind of thing
Yeah,
on there.
New York Times bestseller doesn't matter. It came out in a lawsuit a few years ago, Random House. Some New York Times bestseller titles sell 12 copies. There's it's all marketing and PR.
It's
It's
all
all
vanity.
it's
Yeah, it's smoke and
all
mirrors.
spin.
Yeah.
It's all smoke and mirrors. And the New York Times bestseller list doesn't mean squat in terms of real sales.
Mhm.
So, it's not a bestseller because it sells. It's a bestseller because the New York Times says it's a bestseller.
Yeah, or like, someone paid someone to have it on their
Yeah.
book, or someone has a friend there. Or, oh man, I heard you voted for Obama back in 2012. I like you. Oh, you're
Yeah.
also black and a woman. Oh, New York Times bestseller. What's this book about? I don't know.
It,
Black frogs
yeah.
attacking
Well,
white
and
caterpillars.
and that's the other thing that we're running into in traditional publishing. It is dominated by white liberal women at the editor level, at the publisher level, at the agent level. And they generally will not publish anything written by a white male, especially if it's white heterosexual male. And that's a problem too, because men read books. Men especially read science fiction.
Yeah.
And Bayan Books, Tony Weisskopf is great. She's over there in charge of Bayan. They will publish all sorts of things from all sorts of different authors, and they know what their market is. Their market is primarily men. They'll do a lot of military science fiction, a lot of hard science fiction.
Hmm.
They do some fantasy, some sword and sandal stuff, but they know their audience.
Hmm.
And the stuff that they're publishing, the traditional publishing houses aren't they don't want to touch it because, well, this is written for men. This is written for, not only is it written for
Did,
men, it's
did you
written
end
for
up doing
manly
a
men.
show? Did you end up doing a show like a few years ago where literally they revealed the qualifications for what you're talking about? We actually, I think I wasn't on this show. I think it was on like one of my other previous podcasts we were doing it.
Hmm.
We read them. I almost threw up. I was like, remember the description was like, you cannot have a white male lead aged like
Yeah.
18 to 40. Is like, what the fuck? You have to have LGBTQ supporting cast. Like, what in the world?
Yeah. Well,
What?
and the entire industry, the entire entertainment industry has been like that because of all of the DEI requirements, and some of that comes from, you could get into the whole World Economic Forum and BlackRock and Vanguard, all of these different, institutional investors in the various different corporations, and it comes all the way down. But the other aspect of that is that the politics of the people involved influence the culture of the thing getting created, and vice versa. Andrew Breitbart said that politics was downstream of culture. That's why they get into the entertainment, so they can influence you in how you think and how you feel, so you'll lean a certain direction politically, and then vice versa. Then the right people get elected, and you can cycle back to make things even more that direction. And and now we're finally getting out of that, because the corporations realize that you can't make any money doing it that way,
That's true.
because nobody shows up.
Hmm.
They get rid of John Lasseter at Pixar because he hugs too much. And now you don't have Oscar winning movies from Pixar anymore. You have Elio, which had to go through a massive rewrite, re-edit to take all of the homosexual code stuff out, because when they did the audience testing, and it was like, nobody's going to want to watch this.
Oh no, I
No,
remember that
everybody
one.
hates
Yeah,
this.
they took
So
out the LGBTQ themes
yeah.
because it didn't resonate well with the test audience. I was like,
Oh,
you
they
know what's
hated it.
crazy is, what's funny? How you imagine this for a lot of these movies that came out these days that are like that one? How many of these movies have they tested with a test audience that didn't like it, then actually thought that they would keep all that shit in there that those small amount of people didn't like and thought that we would like it on a mass level? That's
Yeah.
crazy. If
Yeah.
that small audience didn't like it, what makes you think 100 million people would like that? Probably not. Probably not, right? Or
Yeah.
what about that movie Strange World? It had like Jake Gyllenhaal in it or whatever, but the main boy character was he was pansexual or something, and it only made like 85 million on like a $180 million budget.
Yeah. Well, I think Strange World also had going against it the fact that Jane Fonda was in the cast. And so you're going to have people that sit there and go, if Jane Fonda is involved, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to show up.
Mm.
Just simply because of her history. But yeah, you're right. You have it, and when the marketing leans into the identitarian stuff, oh, this has the LGBTQ representation, and you have
Mhm.
you're a gay couple parents and you're bisexual this and this and the other and black this and white or Puerto Rican this and Hispanic this and that's not why people show up. Tell me a good story. I don't care if the character's black, white, got three legs, three arms, three eyes, whatever. Tell me a good story. Tell me a story that entertains me, that lets me escape from the real world for a couple of hours. I'll pay money for that. I'm not going to get paid money to get lectured to or speechified for 2 hours. We're seeing this with Star Trek now. Alex Kurtzman in an interview a few years ago said that he was using Star Trek as a platform, as a platform for message fiction. Nobody shows up for that. It's why Doctor Who has failed. It's why Star Wars has failed. It's why Star Trek has failed. Is because the people that are in charge of those story universes hate the story universe, killed it, weared it and are wearing it like a skin suit in order to tell whatever message fiction that they want
Mhm.
in the guise of whatever IP you want to fill in that blank.
So the other thing that was brought up recently, I don't know if you ever been into like comic books or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Do you remember? Yes, because I know we're gonna talk about it on the Friday show anyway. But I just want to get your general opinion of it because it just happened yesterday. The whole Dan Slott situation, where he
Oh yeah, I
basically
saw
went on
that.
Twitter and made a video, kind of begging people to buy his new. I think it's gonna be a limited series. Well, to be fair, that's actually the joke in of itself. They're all limited series now,
Right,
guys. These
right.
days,
They'll reboot it in 12 issues anyway. Yeah. Now,
12.
I yeah, if they get that far. Yeah, I saw I didn't see the video, but I saw a lot of people talking about it. But that's consistent with where the comic book industry is right now because what was it a couple of years ago
Mhm.
we the sales statistics, something like 73% of sales in that market are manga. Yeah, it's
Yeah, Demon
DC
Slayer
and Marvel.
outsold all of them at one
Yeah,
point. It's
DC and
insane.
Marvel are dead and they know it. And some of that comes from the kind of stories they're telling. Some of that comes from editors that don't really know how to do their jobs. You've got artists that are not very good. You have writers and artists both that are getting onto social media and insulting the audience. And how dare you say anything bad about the kind of stuff? Usually we go back to the self-insert stuff. We
Yeah.
criticize, you criticize the work, you're criticizing me, and how dare you?
Hmm.
And we're going to block you, and we're going to put you on a list, and all of that. And it at some point when you've got Kelly Sue DeConnick that sits there and says, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Everybody went, okay, and they all walked away. And the publishers are sitting there going, where'd everybody go? Well, you told us this isn't for us, so we left.
Hmm.
And that's where we're at right now. And they still have not completely learned that lesson. And that brings us to Dan Slott saying, please buy my book. After how many years where Dan Slott is insulting people who are critical of his work on Spider-Man or whatever other books he's on. And it's not just him; it's all of them. It's Kelly Sue DeConnick, it's Matt Fraction. Is I don't know if Jim Zub is doing some phenomenal work over a
Hmm.
Conan, the Conan books for
Hmm.
Titan, but Larry Hama, Aubrey Sitterson, all of these people who are insulting the audience, and it's especially when it comes to politics. I mean, you look at the way Mark Hamill treats people online, Anson Mount, Mark Ruffalo, all of them. If you voted for Trump, if you vote for a conservative, if you vote Republican, then you're a Nazi, fascist, bigot, homophobe, whatever, and we don't want your money. The CEO of Starbucks did it. Starbucks is having problems now. All of them. It's not just in the creative endeavors. It's not just the
Right.
studios and the publishers. All of them. If you vote a certain way, I don't want you as a customer. Okay, I'll take my money elsewhere.
Hmm.
And then these companies start to have financial problems and they start to struggle. And they're like, oh no. Wait, we didn't mean it.
Hmm.
Too late.
Well, they sure were doubling down in that moment in time when they were saying those things, when they
Yes.
were actively repeating them. It's one of these things where, I don't know how much forgiveness people extend to people these days. I really don't do that enough.
It's
But if
hard to
someone
do.
says, man. But if someone goes, you know what, hey man, I made a mistake. You know what, we all make mistakes. One time is whatever. But if you're constantly, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, that's where you start drawing the line. You start going, wait a minute, I think you actually mean what you're saying here. You
Well,
know?
yeah, it's that plus, like with COVID, you had, all of the cancellations. Well, if you don't get the vaccine, then you're this, that, and the other. And the apologies that have come from that have basically been along the lines of, well, we really didn't do all that much. We didn't really insult you that much. We didn't really cause that much of a problem. We didn't really give you all that much grief. They want to sweep it under the rug that it didn't really happen the way we all remembered that it happened, because they don't really want to apologize when they're wrong. They don't want to apologize when they're losing money and they have to come back and sit there and acknowledge. But all of the different conspiracy theories over the last 10 years have been proven correct. At some point, they're kind of forced to acknowledge the
Mhm.
point, but they still don't want to apologize. They're more apologetic that they've been found out, rather than I'm sorry I was wrong. I'm sorry I treated you that way. It's I'm sorry you're right.
Mhm.
I don't like the fact that you're right. I'm going to begrudgingly acknowledge, well, maybe you got a point, but there's always a qualifier. You know, oh, that's not happening. Well, maybe it's happening, but it's not happening to you. Yes, it's happening, but it's a good thing. Yes, it's happening. Why do you hate it, you bigot? That's the cycle. And then afterwards, it's like, well, no, it didn't really happen that way. That's the last step, and that's where we are on a lot of things. But
Well,
you know,
with Dan Slott, like you said, I'm able to understand the state of Marvel because if other companies can have some moderate success with some things they're doing, because like Image Comics, they posted they're having some success.
yeah,
DC's posting they're having some. Marvel is in a state where like it shouldn't even be a question in your mind if anything Spider-Man or Spider-Man adjacent would sell, because in your mind, just in your mind, as a casual, even if you've never read a Spider-Man comic your entire life, you've only watched like movies and TV, animation, or live action, you would
hmm
probably think in your brain, won't that just sell because it's Spider-Man? That's
it
the
should.
thing. That's the key. Doesn't now. It
Well,
doesn't now, and that's a bad thing. When Spider-Man just is not selling based off its name alone, that's really bad. That is
well,
horrible,
it's
actually.
it's complicated. It's complicated by the fact that you have a generation of people, millennials and Gen Z, don't do the physical media anymore. They're not reading
Mhm.
books. They're online with the TikTok and the YouTube and the
Well, they're
Instagram and the
pirating a lot of these
Snapchat.
books too. They don't even
They're
have money.
pirating a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're also not interested in those things. They're not interested in Spider-Man. They're not interested in Batman. They're not interested in Wonder Woman. They're interested in Sabrina Carpenter and Harry, whatever the next thing is,
She says men are
that's coming out.
useless. That's what she says.
Yeah, Percy Jackson or whatever. And and now, you combine that with Mary Jane Watson and Paul, which whatever is going on there, whether it's Mephisto or some other stupid thing, Paul is this character that everybody hates that's read these books. And then you combine that, add to it, going all the way back to One More Day, which now Tom Brevoort comes out and says, oh, well, I can't understand why anybody's upset about any of this stuff. It doesn't really matter anyway that anybody's upset. We don't care that you're upset that we changed Spider-Man's legacy forever with this
Remember
one
how he had an
editorial
interview
decision.
where he said that he didn't even like they wanted to make fans upset and angry, and he got this weird sick
Yeah.
thrill off of angering fans and seeing people so passionate. You know
Yeah.
what's crazy, Tom? Couldn't you just make people feel that way with doing good stories? He
See, and
wants to
that's
do it where
that's
you
the
make you
yeah.
feel angry.
Well, and that goes back to when they did New 52 over at DC and erased the marriage between Aquaman and Mira. And Dan DiDio is quoted as saying that nobody could be married because they got to be miserable. Like, well, you can tell good stories about married characters. They don't have to be single in order for you to tell a compelling story. You can tell a good story, and the characters can be married. Superman and Lois is a good example of that. But the rebirth that Jeff Johns wrote was at least a tacit acknowledgement and kind of an apology for New 52, but Marvel has yet to acknowledge that One More Day was a mistake.
Hmm.
And until they do that, Spider-Man is going to continue to have challenges. And the other aspect of that too is if you have a creative team that doesn't believe in the characters that they're writing, then that's going to do harm to the stories they're telling too. Having Doc Ock inhabit Peter Parker's body like Dan Slott did for a while, it's a gimmick. It's an interesting gimmick that you can do for a while, but you can't keep doing it because eventually he's got to be Peter Parker again.
Hmm.
And what does that do to your sales when you go back to status quo? You're
Yeah.
right back where you started. And
Didn't
and
in Superior
every
Spider-Man he was gonna kill him or something like that? He wanted to kill off Peter at one point, and it's like, what? But
well,
then they changed it. They were like, we were always gonna bring him back. It's like, I don't trust you people at all. I couldn't trust you writing a good
Well,
story.
that's
You
how
know?
you got the ultimate line is they were going to kill off Peter Parker and there was such a hue and cry about it that they said, okay, well, we'll spin off this new story universe and we'll kill off Peter Parker over there. We get Miles Morales.
Mm,
And that's my understanding. I could have that wrong, but my
mhm.
understanding is that's how the beginnings of the Ultimate Universe started. Was they were trying to figure out how to tell different stories with different characters in these legacy names,
Mm.
and that's how we got Miles Morales because they wanted to kill off Peter Parker, which they did in the Ultimate line.
Because the thing with Dan Slott putting out this video, it's one of these things that you would think that this would sell because it's Spider-Man on it. But guys, I think we're moving to a point even in the kind of industry that we're having with comic books where just because there's something kind of sort of adjacent with a big character, that doesn't mean it's going to sell very well. I mean, you look at X-Men, they spawned off all those X-Men books with them X-Men from the ass a new butt plug. That's what I call that
Yeah.
line because that's what it was. Literally just a bunch of nothing. And then they had this book called Exceptional X-Men that they kept for no real reason whatsoever and had horrible sales numbers.
Yeah.
So they're only keeping things around either for vanity, to spit in the face of people, or we're getting to a point where fans go, you know what, there might be all these spin-offs of X-Men or whatever, but I'm only gonna get like one or two of these books.
Well, part of the problem is at the editorial level. You have children. Heather Antos is what, 27, 28, 30. You have children that are editing the books. The group editors and the editors
Mm-hmm.
of the lines are not very experienced. They don't have a whole lot of time in the comics industry. They come from other places,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're journalists, reportedly, or they're coming from outside comic books. They're not steeped in the industry. They don't understand the characters that they're responsible for, and they're hiring their friends. They're hiring the DEI checkbox quota people instead of getting the most talented person that you can get to fit writing Spider-Man or Superman or Fantastic Four. And because of this trend, you now have if people who are in charge of the books who don't understand what works story wise. And so you get a lot of scenes in your comic books where a lot of people are sitting around at the table talking and there's not a whole lot of action because that's what they do. The milkshake crew. You remember that photograph? Here we are, where all of these editorial people, and who are they? They're a bunch of 20 something girls that okay, well, where are the men? Where is the next Jim Shooter? Where is the next Jeanette Kahn? Where's the next Julie Schwartz? You don't have those, and you need that. You need a Jim Shooter to set things right, and there's not one out there anymore. You're not going to find one because that particular industry, especially with comic books, is dead,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no reward to being a part of it.
Like right now, what's selling for DC Comics is their Absolute Universe.
Yeah.
but as people have pointed out, even though it might be selling very well right now, and it is doing very well for them, a lot of the characters are having very good success with that line. But the problem with that is at some point, like we mentioned earlier with the whole honeymoon phase things when it comes to this kind of stuff, once that honeymoon phase is over and we're like a year in, how many like dedicated people of this is going to be,
Yeah.
because they're gonna at some point all of these lines are gonna put out an issue that a lot of people are gonna take a like just not take offense, that's the wrong terminology, but like they're not gonna like, it's gonna be all of them are gonna do it. It happens in every comic book line that has ever existed. There's always gonna be a book that'll come out in a line that is gonna make people really mad. When this
Well,
line
this
does that,
yeah.
how many people are gonna fall off, you know?
Well, it's not even that. It's the novelty is going to wear off after a certain amount of time, and then it's not really Superman. It's not really Batman. It's a version of Superman and Batman, but
Mhm.
it's not the main line comic book title.
Right.
So even if Absolute Superman is selling, what you want to do is utilize that to encourage growth and people to pick up Action Comics and Adventures of Superman, and you want them to look at the Batman title, and you want them to look at Detective Comics, and you want them to look at Legends of the Dark Knight and
Right.
Wonder Woman. All of the main titles are not benefiting
I think
from the
Tom King
Absolute
on Wonder
title.
Woman is what
Oh
turning people
God.
away.
Tom King takes every book and turns it into a therapy session.
And
And
what's
I have
crazy is
no optimism whatsoever at all about Supergirl, the movie.
Detective Comics and Action Comics, people you know, those aren't on those sales charts. Those ICV2 sales charts. What's I've only ever seen Detective Comics on there when they had the 1,100 special. That
Yeah.
was it. I've never seen them just in top 50. Keep in mind, because it goes to like 200. The fact that Detective Comics and Action Comics could be literally number 150 is so bad. How? These are like the most legendary standard runs in all of comic books. They're at 100, potentially they're not even on the numbers you can see cuz it goes to like 200.
Yeah.
It's they're not you don't see them unless there's some big milestone like Action Comics is going to eventually have 1100. It's great. I'm glad it can hit that milestone, but like that's the only time these books are ever going to be on that topping of a sales chart. That's not good. That's
Well,
horrible.
and that goes all the way back to Crisis on Infinite Earths. The comic book industry learned back then that if you and Crisis was driven by an editorial decision because they had bought so many different imprints with
Mhm.
Fawcett and the other groups that they were trying to integrate all of them into one universe. There was an editorial reason why they did it,
Mhm.
but it turned into this big event, and then after that the only thing that mattered was that there was an event, and it sold a bunch of books, and it was this big thing. And so now everything had to be an event, right? You had Crisis at Infinite Earths, you had Infinite Crisis, you had Final Crisis, you had Secret Wars, you had Secret Invasion, all these different big event titles, big crossover things that involved everybody. And that's fine for short-term sales. You can sell the event, but how does that help with your steady sales of your monthly book?
Yeah, DC's always having a crisis. How many
Yeah,
crises we have? Imagine Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. What
there's
the f-
there's at least five, and then you have all of the, War of the Gods, Armageddon 2001, all these different
But originally, also we had
things.
Zero Hour back in the
Zero
day.
Hour, yeah, all of those different things. And Marvel's just as bad. And Marvel has the additional problem of doing all of these variant covers. How
Yeah,
you get 25, 30 different variant covers for an event book, and the only way you can get it is if you're on a 1 to 25 ratio, which means you got to order 25 of the normal book in order to get one of the variant cover.
yeah. The way they have it set up for shops is like you have to order so many of this to get that 1 in 25,
Yeah.
75 incentive variant. It's like, oh, the whole system is so bad. But the thing is, anyone that called out how bad that system was, you're like, you're a Nazi, you're a bigot, you voted for Trump. It's like, oh my God. So not only But and keep in mind, I understand why a shop owner can't call them out because it's a business thing. That's understandable. But the
Well,
fact of
and
the
the
matter
and the
is that
variant
they,
cover thing now the variant cover thing that's never been never been really much of a political issue because people have been complaining about that for decades.
yeah, yeah,
So that because that started in the 90s because Marvel was almost bankrupt. Well, how do we sell books? Well, let's do these variant covers and make them more marketable. People will start buying various different copies so they can get all these different covers
right,
and turned comic books into collectibles, and now it becomes an investment instead of just something you pick up and you read it and you throw away.
yeah.
And that completely changed the industry as well and might have saved Marvel in the 90s, but at the same time the long-term impact of that is a net negative.
Well, because I was bringing up the fact that if people not in that position are bringing up a massive issue with like distribution and publishers and all this stuff, and then you had comic book shop owners going like, "No, but we're fine with it."
Yeah.
But it's like I understand from a shop owner's perspective why you can't criticize like that because that's a professional thing. That's understandable. But the fact that they would defend how badly that system is, it's like, are you saying we can't have any
Well,
other system but this? You
what
know?
your what's your alternative? Because at that point, your distribution is happening all through Diamond and nobody else.
Yeah.
You don't have another system. You don't have another way of doing it because
Hmm.
Diamond has monopolized the distribution aspect of that, so that the publishers don't have because Marvel tried to do their own, DC's tried to do one, and it never worked because Diamond was the one with all the connections and the warehouses and the transportation, all that,
Yeah.
and we see now what happened then. Diamond's gone, and the industry took a hit there. I mean, COVID showed all of the cracks that were in Diamond's wall right there,
Mhm.
and they never recovered. You have now people were forced to look at Lunar and some of the other ones to try to get their books out because Diamond couldn't get the job done. And that was a big change. That's a huge sea change in
Yeah,
the
Diamond going
comics
away is
industry.
not just some little small
No,
person
that
mom
was
and
a
pop store.
massive
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
But now you have distribution alternatives, sure, but nobody's buying the books because they're all buying manga. And so that's the challenge. Yeah, it's never any one thing. It's all of the things.
Didn't Diamond also do free comic book day for a very long time? Was that
Um,
someone else? Maybe
yeah,
I'm thinking about
they
someone
were
different.
they were involved in it somewhat, but it was Joe. Oh crap, I can't remember his name. Flying Colors Comics out in California is where that idea started.
You're right. Yeah.
And the
Hmm.
industry picked it up and said, "Oh, hey, this is a great idea. Yeah, first Saturday in May, let's
Always
do it."
taking from someone else's great ideas. It's always their thing.
But it is a great idea from a marketing standpoint. It is a great idea. Sure, I'm going to invest a few dollars to come up with some stuff that I can give away for free. You get them into the comic book shop and look at all of these comics, and now we can sell comics. It's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. The problem is somebody comes in there and they walk in and they pick up a Captain Marvel book and her face looks like a potato. I'm going to put the book back. Or if I'm sitting there and people are talking about, oh well, this whole storyline is stupid, it's going to go away after issue 5 anyway. Well, why should I even bother picking it up if they're going to reboot and I'm going to get
Yeah.
a brand new number 1 in 3 months?
Yeah, because once you kind of do the whole free comic book day thing, I don't know, three, four, five, six times, in your brain, it starts to go, wait a minute. I'm not only am I doing the same thing every single year, but the end results aren't changing though. Like Marvel is going to promote a new book that they'll have coming out later in the year. Now,
Yeah.
if you know after a few years of doing this, that's only going to last like 10 issues. That's not worth your time investing any money into. Maybe just if you want to do like single books, you just pick up the trades. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
But then you go, it's not worth my time anymore. And I feel like once people kind of have those epiphany thoughts in their brain, that's when it all falls apart. When we're all going, wait a
Well,
minute, why
and
don't we just stop buying these? Because we're all just kind of, it's like, what's the old saying back in the day? I don't need sex because comics fuck me every day.
the invention of the graphic novel had a big impact too,
Mhm.
because now you have, like for example, Watchmen. The contract with Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons was that at some point DC stops selling Watchmen, the rights revert back to them. But they have kept Watchmen in publication all of this time through the graphic novel,
Just
and
reprinting it in
just
various different
reprinting it.
formats. Yeah.
And then this whole thing, well, now we can do these hardback editions that collect all of these different stories into one book, and now we
Hmm.
can sell them at the bookstore, and we don't need the convenience stores. We don't need 7-Eleven anymore. We don't need the spinner racks anymore. We'll just do these books that are actually books and not floppies, not periodicals. So the comic book shops go away, the convenience stores go away. We're going to sell these books. We're going to sell these graphic novels and Barnes and Noble and Books a Million and that sort of thing. And we don't need the comic book shops, which is why the comic book shops started selling Funko Pops and board games, because they had to survive. But the graphic novel also is, well, this book collects 12 issues. So I'm not going to buy the 12 issues. I'm going to wait till the graphic novel comes out. And so
Hmm.
that impacted sales as well, because if it doesn't make 12 issues and they never finish it, then there's no graphic novel and I haven't wasted any of my money because I don't get the ending, right? But if they can collect the 12 issues and they put together a graphic novel, I know I have a complete story. I'll buy the graphic novel and then nobody's buying the floppies.
That's
And
true.
that has a huge impact on sales as well.
Last few things I'll ask you before we head out. I know it's
Yeah.
getting a little late for you.
No, you're good.
First thing is, do you have anything planned coming up that you would like to let the audience know about?
Tomorrow, Chuck Dixon will be on the show. We start at 1 p.m. Eastern. And he's going to be on in the second hour. And then I'm hoping to have a discussion on Friday about the Disney earnings call. We also do a Babylon 5 rewatch over on Sci-Fi Snobs channel on Wednesday nights. And Death Angel Shadow is a co-host on a show called Bad News Bards that we have on Sunday nights over on our channel that talks about RPGs. So yeah, a lot of things going on. Next Monday is our 17th anniversary. I'm not sure what we've got. I don't know that we've got anything specific planned, but we try to do a show every day at 1 p.m. Eastern. That's a little flexible right now because we're going to the doctor a lot because my wife is recovering from her third back surgery, so that that has an impact.
Oh, damn those. Oh, I
But
hate
yeah,
hate that stuff. Man, that sucks. Sorry about that. Holy shit.
yeah, but yeah. So we're on all the socials. We don't have anything specific to plug, but Chuck Dixon will be on the show tomorrow, so that'll be a highlight.
Oh, but I want to say thank you to all the people that watch you. We came into the chat. If you guys end up seeing this show on the algorithm, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We typically go live. I mean, well, pending my new PC that'll be here soon, be able to go live more frequently. So far, I've only really been able to just do like the podcast because I can't game on this fucking piece of worthless garbage. Good lord, man, I hate this thing. So typically, the MSK show is Monday with me and Joe. We, for the most part, have been doing Thursday. So basically, Monday, Thursday, Friday. Those are the current days where you can have the show. Wednesday, I don't know how Nate feels about doing the show moving forward because he's been having problems in his own life too and other stuff too. But hopefully we can keep doing it Wednesday. But for the most part, the consistent show days are Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday with the Cloud9 podcast with esports and sports with Noops and Warren. That's always up in the air. Yeah, it's just I wish I had some stability. I miss when I used to have stability on these shows, man. When you have the not stability and things are kind of when like one cog is out of that machine, it's just all types of bad, actually.
Well, and consistency is good for growth too, because with the YouTube algorithm being the way it is, a lot of times people don't get the notifications for when we go on the air. So I encourage them, okay, check the socials because we always post links on our socials whenever we're going to go live. And if you have a steady, consistent schedule, we're on live every day at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're on live, Comics Division 9 p.m. Central, Monday and Thursday. If the audience knows where you're supposed to be with your show, they'll show up. And if that schedule just keeps bouncing around and they can't find you because the notifications never get to you, then it's harder to grow that show organically, grow that audience organically. But as long as you've got a consistent schedule, people can find you. They know where you're at, even if you don't post a link, even if they don't get a notification. I know I'm going to be here at 3 o'clock on Monday, Thursday, Friday, and I'm going to watch your show. So yeah, consistent schedule is a big factor in your
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah, and then when someone, either quits on you or doesn't do it for a while, then you have to change how you do shows. And like, come on, guys, we work like jobs here too. That interferes with like, your job too, because you're like, wait, I can't do the show on this day anymore because I have to work this day at this time, and it's just a whole bunch of stuff. And if anyone's in your community, I'm always taking applications for co-hosts on certain days, expertise on sports, well, basketball and football. Those are my sports that I talk about. Or if you're into esports like League of Legends, like LoL esports would be fine too. Movies, TV, anime, comic books, all that stuff. Yeah, that's also stuff too. But if you're looking for a job, non-paid, to talk to the a charisma master like me, I'm always gonna be here because it is so hard. It's not just hard finding people. It's just finding someone, because you can always get someone on for like one time every once in a while. That's easy to a certain extent when you've gotten a groove of how to do it. Finding someone that wants to be on with you consistently, week in and week out, that's the hard part. But no, we're gonna have Nate on tonight. Hey, Nate, I booked us a guest for our show at 7 p.m. PST. You better be there, you bastard. It's gonna be a really good-looking hot lady, and you better be nice to her. You better be on your best behavior. Don't embarrass me in front of her because I had to keep up. What's that thing Joker said in the Arkham City? We got to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and don't be on. Oh my God! See. This is the thing.
Yeah, here they
He's
come.
supposed to.
Here they come.
Oh God. Hey Nate, I'm sorry. Hey Nate, I'm sorry you have to be there tonight. Oh my God, I'll be there. I'll be nice. I'm worried about you. Me, I know how to rizz up the ladies. It's easy, actually. But yeah, it's just, guys, whenever people like him, Jason, are doing this stuff, go by, sub by the chat, subscribe to the channel, always tell them that, I'm doing better, but tell them how much they're doing and really give them some love because, as guys, I don't really need people just like sucking me off and complimenting me. I don't need that. But, every once in a while, it's good to know, hey, man, I love your show. You're the best. Every once in a while,
Yeah, it is good to hear to get that encouragement from the people that watch. Well, and seeing names in the chat, people that you recognize over and over again, they're coming back, and that means that they find value in what you do, and
Mm-hmm.
that's encouraging too. So yeah, and it's been fun to be on. I had a great time.
Yeah.
This has been a good couple hours well spent.
And last thing I'll ask you, man, is do you have any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular and anything else you want to say before we head out?
Can't think of anything right now. No, we do have the Babylon 5 show tonight at 10 p.m. Central on SciFi4Me's channel. Mindy and I are going to be going off to see Project Hail Mary tonight, so I'm not sure if I'll be there, but we're in the middle of season 3. We're on the back half of season 3 for Babylon 5. We're doing a rewatch discussion, so that's over there on Snob's channel. And I think Death Angel Shadows put the link in. Maybe not, but yeah, Snob is the one who hosts that one.
Awesome. Well, it's great having you on for the first time, man. And just want to say
Yeah.
thank you guys for checking out this episode